Help, I'm a prisoner in the library. Chapter 7. Now's the time to chase the squirrel. No one is allowed on this floor, Miss Fenton said sharply. What are you doing here? She took a deep breath and her nostrils flared. When she did this, Miss Fenton was really angry. How dare you dress up in those clothes? And you're eating! You're eating in those clothes! Who let you girls in? Jo Beth moved behind Mary Rose. There were so many questions. Which room were they supposed to answer first? She's not very nice, Jo Beth whispered to her sister. I don't like her. This is not a popularity contest, Miss Fenton snapped. It isn't necessary for you to like me. Jo Beth's whisper had been loud enough to be heard. Miss Fenton felt very irritated. Her head ached, her arm hurt, and these two children had appeared out of thin air. Worse, they had touched one of the displays, and now the younger one was standing there, eating Miss Fenton's food and saying that she didn't like her. You saved your life, Mary Rose said, putting her arm around Jo Beth and giving Miss Fenton a defiant look. Mary Rose was scared. She didn't know what the librarian was going to do next. You saved the blankets and the ice packs. I suppose you were responsible for that, she told Mary Rose. Jo Beth helped. All right, you girls come and sit down and tell me what you're doing here. Then we will go downstairs and you will take those dresses off and you will put on your own clothes. Miss Fenton settled comfortably on the sofa. She was beginning to feel a little better. The pain in the back of her head was not so strong, although the bump was still tender to the touch, and there was only a dull ache in her sprained wrist. In a moment, she would get the elastic bandage from the bathroom cabinet and wrap it around her wrist. Right now, she wanted to know who the girls were and how they had found their way into the closed library. Mary Rose started with Jo Beth interrupting along the way to get the facts straight. Well, if that doesn't beat buttered parsnips, Fillmore Fenton declared when the girls had finished telling her about their adventures in the library up until the time they had found her on the floor. Jo Beth sent her sister an anxious glance. What a strange thing to say. What was a parsnip anyway? It sounded like a little animal with sharp claws and tiny beady eyes. But why, Jo Beth wondered, would anyone want to butter it? Earlier, when Jo Beth had explained about the emergency that had brought them to the library, Miss Fenton had exclaimed, That must have been your father at the door. And I gave him hail and farewell so fast the poor man left before he got here. Jo Beth had tried to interrupt, to add that her father was last-minute Harry, but Mary Rose had just rushed on with the story. She'd reached the part where they had dressed up in the clothing they found in the kid hack room and had sat on a bench with the dolls behind him. She just kept talking, and Jo Beth couldn't get a word in edgewise. But now Mary Rose had finished at last. Why couldn't you hear us talking and walking around downstairs? Mary Rose had now asked. She toasted a marshmallow in the fire, waiting until it was crisp and golden before popping it into her mouth. She and Jo Beth had been eating steadily since they discovered this kitchen. I was upstairs. You mean there's another floor over this one? Jo Beth's eyes opened wide. This house must be bigger than a castle. It's a mansion, Mary Rose corrected her sister. That's what they used to call the big old houses, mansions. How can this mansion be a mansion and a library too? Jo Beth snatched the last marshmallow from the box. That made it even, 5 for Mary Rose and 5 for herself. Miss Fenton had turned them down. They don't sit well on my stomach, Miss Fenton had announced. Jo Beth had closed her eyes and tried to imagine a row of toasted marshmallows with stick-like legs and arms sitting on Miss Fenton's stomach, slipping and sliding, because they couldn't sit well. She had opened her eyes in a hurry, though, when she thought Mary Rose was trying to sneak the last marshmallow. There were no library branches in this whole neighborhood, and certainly nothing that was special just for children, and here I was, all alone with rooms to spare. I made the offer to turn the first floor over to the library, and before you could say, coffee grows in a white oak tree, they agreed. And we've both been here a long time. Miss Fenton stared at the fire. But now, they've built a fine modern library, and they won't be using this house anymore. After a moment, she added, her eyes snapping. They say we have to move with the times. Who are they? Jo Beth asked curiously. Mary Rose, studying Miss Fenton's angry face, changed the subject quickly. Excuse me. Do you think the power will come back on soon? Blizzard? What blizzard? Miss Fenton couldn't believe all the things she was hearing. How long had she been lying on the floor? That's what the operator said. On the phone. It's dead, Mary Rose told Miss Fenton, who had automatically started to reach for the telephone near the sofa. I have a small radio in the kitchen that works on batteries. I'll get it and see if we can't find the latest news about the weather. You better let me go, Mary Rose began, but Miss Fenton was already on her feet. I'm not the queen. I'll do it for myself. Thank you very much. She went marching off to the kitchen. Over her shoulder, she instructed Mary Rose to go get the elastic bandage from the bathroom cabinet. Jo Beth edged closer to her sister. I'll go with you. I don't want to stay here with her by myself. She says the queerest things. I don't know what she means half the time she's talking. A lot of grown-ups talk funny, Jo Beth. Come on if you're coming. When the two girls came back with the bandage, Miss Fenton was already sitting on the sofa again. Mary Rose helped Miss Fenton wind the bandage around her swollen wrist, and Jo Beth turned the radio on. A voice came leaping out at them. The reporter was so excited. All of his sentences sounded as if they ended in exclamation marks. The worst storm in our history. It's still snowing heavily. The power is out in many parts of the cities. Travelers have been forced to find shelter in schools and other public buildings. Cars have been abandoned in the streets. Already, many cars have been completely covered by drifting snow. I warned Daddy the snow could cover the car, and we would freeze to death, Jo Beth announced. I told him that would happen. Well, you didn't freeze to death, so don't be so dramatic, Jo Beth. We're probably warmer than Daddy is right now. Miss Fenton held up a finger for silence. She wanted to hear what else the reporter had to say. Accidents, and people are urged not to go out unless it is absolutely necessary. Already there have been many reports of serious problems. A house burning on the far east side of town and fire engines unable to reach the flaming structure, and the father of two small girls who mysteriously disappeared from their car parked near the north side early this evening now fears foul play. Foul play? That's us, Jo Beth was excited. I wonder if they're showing our pictures on TV. I hope they didn't show my school picture. Foul play, Miss Fenton repeated in a hollow voice. Oh, that poor, poor man. I shall never forgive myself for turning him away, never. That's silly, Mary Rose said sensibly. You didn't know. Why, the last thing Daddy said to us was to keep the doors locked and not to talk to any strangers. Anyway, we're perfectly all right. But Daddy doesn't know that. Another thought struck Jo Beth. I wonder if Mommy knows. Maybe she doesn't even care now that she's having this new baby and all, she added. Don't pay any attention to Jo Beth. Everything's like a play on the stage to her. Turn the radio off, Miss Fenton instructed, and try the phone again. Maybe they've repaired the lines. Mary Rose obligingly lifted the receiver of the phone. It's still out of order. Jo Beth was thinking again about having her picture shown on TV. I wish they would show us in these clothes. Wouldn't Daddy be surprised? Miss Fenton sat up straight. Waverly, wait! She had almost forgotten. She struggled to her feet. You girls bring the candles. Where are we going? Mary Rose asked. Downstairs, to the kid hat display. You are going to remove those dresses and put on your own things right now. I hate it down there. It's dark and scary, Jo Beth protested. Can't we change when it gets light again? Mary Rose didn't want to go downstairs either. Why leave this cozy room with its cackling fire and its cheerful, pleasant warmth? Now's the time to chase the squirrel, Miss Fenton insisted. There's nothing to be afraid of. Come along. There was no arguing with Miss Fenton. Even the minor bird, taking interest in their movements, flew down after them. Jo Beth tried not to look at the shadows they were casting on the wall as they went down the steps, but her eyes were drawn to them again and again. The strange figures on the wall bobbed up and down, and they stretched high and long, and then vanished at the stair landing, only to bob up again below. Since the girls were wearing long, old-fashioned dresses, their shadows seemed to rise up from the base of the floor, as if they were growing right out of the wood. She was almost glad to reach the kid cat room. Silently, the two girls undressed and began to put on their own clothes. Suddenly, Jo Beth, who had glanced toward the large center room, caught her breath. What's the matter? Mary Rose demanded. Jo Beth shook her head and pointed a shaking finger. There, in the large room, papers were swirling up from Miss Fenton's desk, moving in circles, a dipping, gliding, silent dance in the air.